Hi, and welcome to the fifth class savings. This is the fifth and final class of the 5-class series. And this is the end of how the flow chart works from, building the confidence, assessing yourself, the goal setting, building a budget, maximizing the income and acing that budget. And now you're working on savings. If this is the first video you're seeing, the order is as I just said. So you'll want to go back and start with building skills or financial confidence. So today we're going to talk about savings. We're going to talk about that flow chart again, as we've been seeing over and over again. We're going to talk about some goals and estimations for some big items, typical goals that people have somewhere throughout their life. And then we're going to talk about some other things with savings. As always, you guys can reach out and contact me. You can contact Blueprints in general for some information, and you can get connected to me that way as well if you're interested or need more resources from any of these segments that you've heard or seen. Okay, so savings. So again, that same flow chart we've kind of been seeing, setting those goals, everything always comes back to the goals. You've assessed your current situation, say your budget's pretty worked out, you made the adjustments that you might need. This is also through and through, if you are starting to save and you're finding that there's issues, you come back to assessing your current situation and making adjustments to the savings. Choose where and how to save. That's going to be the next step. So making adjustments is kind of making adjustments to what you need to save. Choosing where and how is going to be the next step of actually getting that settings initiated and started. And then the action planning is going to be following through the steps and actions that you're going to do to be successful in saving that. And then eventually, getting that goal completed whenever you do finish through that action plan. So some goals and estimations. So assess amounts and times needed to save based on your budget. So example, if you can't save more than $50 a month, it will take you more time to save for a goal than it will for someone else. But these are typical goals and estimations from like a perfect world. If your budget's working out great, this is typically what they look like. So an emergency fund, this is your monthly living expenses times 3 months. Monthly living expenses is basically your essentials. However, I do like to tell people you might want to just include your full income into that, because things might change whenever you do need to use that emergency fund, and your payments, things could have changed from that point on too. It's important to note that if you don't change your spending habits when you have an emergency, you're not going to have at least any of this to rely on. So it's good to always get started with the emergency fund and to at least rely on something. And you want to make sure you're including everything in your emergency fund, not just, enough to cover your rent. Maybe you want to make sure you have enough to cover so you have 3 months at least to try to get yourself back on track. Retirement's another big one. So it's your current annual income times 70% times 20 years. Does your employer help you already contribute into your retirement? That's also something to consider when you're doing this. And can you afford more monthly than you're putting into that? Typically people put about, I would say 2% into their retirement from their pay. That's entirely up to you, but typically just to figure out how much money you will A, have in retirement, and B, what your retirement, how much money you should be saving towards. That's how you calculate that out. Children's education. So this is for if your kids are going to post-secondary education. It could also be for yourself as well if you're trying to figure out how much money you need to save to go to school. So this is the number of children times 1 year of tuition times 4 years. Again, this gets kind of complicated because schools change their prices every year. A year of tuition, is that including room and books? Is that include room and board? Is that including books that you want to be able to help pay for? Or is that just a generalized thing? Are there other fees and things they have to pay? So this is just a generalized equation that kind of helps you get a better idea of how much, you can save for that. Home, big ticket item. It's always, one of the top things that people save for. So, your home purchase price times 15% for upfront cost is typically how much you should save for a home. So whenever you are, going to buy a home, this is a really good equation to help you figure it out, and then you can kind of see. So if you reference back to a couple videos ago that I did for, I believe, goal setting, when I talked about how, someone could want to buy a $180,000 house that's 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, and I said about saving $200 a month for, up to 20 years or up to 10 years, and how that might work. That kind of is how I thought about that a little bit, and how, that equation puts into that goal as you're setting that goal. And then a car, so the car price times 200% down payment. The other thing to include about when you're thinking about a car is you want to think about, if you don't already have a car, and car insurance, that's something you're going to have to pay for, as well as repairs and anything that may be done to it if you are buying a used car. So those are things that you have to consider as well. Just thinking about that, as well as savings for the equations and stuff. So everyone is entitled to, save wherever they want. I always suggest for people to save at a bank. I just think it's safe on their customer service base, and there's a lot, that could happen if you save elsewhere. However, if you are someone who has spending problems with either cash, they're more likely to spend cash, or you're more likely to put a credit card into a machine. Using a bank and finding the right ways to use a bank might be beneficial for you. Or if you are less likely to use cash, then maybe that's something that you consider as well. However, the safest and best option is always going to be to use a bank. Check with your current bank that you already have. A lot of them have accounts that you can link to your bank account, so that you don't even have to worry about moving that savings every month. It just automatically goes into that account. You can check the bank on website. It's a really good resource to use. It tells you about all kinds of banks. It's a national initiative that works to ensure that everyone has access to safe and affordable banking and financial products and services. So not necessarily just for savings, but for overall general financial affordability and safety. That's a great website to use to help you figure out tools and resources that you can use. There are conditions and guidelines. Check out the thing. Research the banks around you and the types of services that they provide. Every bank has some kind of different saving account, different checking account, whatever it may be. It could be, the slightest thing. Maybe one bank only lets you deposit from that savings account once a month, and some of them might let you deposit or withdraw maybe 4 times, or whatever it may be. There's little things that, make a bank different. Interest rates do matter. Not necessarily for everyone, but if you do have a pretty good chunk of change in a savings account, you might accrue some interest in there. And if you get an extra $10, then you get an extra $10. It doesn't hurt to have an interest rate added to that. And it also protects your money. So it also not only just protects your money, but it's in one place and it's there and it's going to be there. So it's kind of important that you are protecting your money, because if someone comes and, for example, if someone breaks in your home and steals that cash, you're not going to be able to get that cash back. But if something happens at a bank, they're going to fight to get that money back for you, so that you can continue to move forward with your savings. Building habits. This is the best and most essential part of savings, is that habit building of savings. So you want to check your budget for disposable income or saving expenses. Majority of people just keep a savings expense already in their budget instead of worrying about the disposable income, which is the smarter way to do it. Ideally, if you're really good at, spending money that you shouldn't be. So you want to check your budget for those things and see how much, you are putting into that. You want to set goal for the amount to save each month. So to build that habit, you have to start somewhere, whether it's $1, whether it's 50 cents, whether it's $10, $50, $200, whatever you're setting a goal amount is that works for your budget. You want to save that each month. And once you start building that habit of saving that each month, it'll keep you in the habit of saving. Create tracking for savings and timeline. So this kind of relates back to if you have to put savings in somewhere else or take your savings out of your checking account. or put it into a checking account or whatever the situation might be. You want to make sure you're tracking all of that so that you know that you are putting that money in there. If you take money out of savings, that's also important to track and keep a hold of, because your goal and timeline then is going to shift slightly because of the money that you took out. And you also want to create a timeline kind of within your goal as well, but also within your savings. So if your goal ideally was to save $200 a month for a home, and you're not sure if you have the habits to start with that $200 a month, it's going to be very beneficial for you to at least create the habit of saving $2 a month and work on really working your way up to that $200. You're going to reassess your habits. Everyone, habits are different. Spending might be easy for you, might not be easy for you. Once you break that habit one time, so if you get on this track of saving, the $200, the 100, whatever dollars a month, and, something happens and you don't necessarily have money, or you overspend that month or whatever it might be, and so you can't put money to that savings because you overspent, you need to reassess your habits and start again from the beginning, and really get in tune with that, because once you break a habit, it's hard to undo the broken, and it's also hard to break a habit once you have continued with that habit for so long. And then increase or decrease. So with habit building, it's important that if you're starting out low, that you try to work on building that increase and getting to where you want to be. If you're too high, it's important to build a habit of decreasing and working your way. So habits kind of change throughout, but savings is a habit as a whole. So it's not necessarily the money that you see that's the savings, but it's learning to set aside that money to have that savings so that you can reach your goals. Habit building is the number one thing that either makes or breaks people when it comes to savings. So it's important to start with those habits. So if your goal was to maybe buy a home, or better yet, buy a car, and you already reached that goal, it's not a bad idea to continue to save money regularly for the next goal. Or if you don't have a next goal right away, just to have that money saved, because you never know when you're going to need it. And once you build that habit and you break that habit of saving because you stop saving for a while, it's very hard to continue to build that habit in the future whenever you've already broke that from the beginning. So that is everything. You've completed all 5 classes. If you've made it to the end at this point, hopefully you've learned something new. You have now the goals, the budget, the maximizing income, the savings, all the step process that go from the very beginning the whole way to the end of the savings, so that you can achieve those goals. Again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to our agency for a referral. My name is Amanda Eveler. My email address is aeveler@myblueprints.org. You can also call the main office and they can connect you to me as well. If you ever, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. And I hope that these classes have helped you build in some way, shape, or form, and that you are now going to be better financial well-being overall for all of you guys. Thank you.